Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like overcapitalize in whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well organized and well funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia, and welcome to Badlands Daily. Joined on this lovely Tuesday morning by the one and only Ghost Bass Patrick Henry. Gordon, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, Brian. I'm good. How are you this morning?
I am living my best life. I'm dealing with the completion of my roof today, so I apologize for any noise in the background. It's been pretty lulled the last half hour or so, but some periodic banging in the background, so apologize in advance, but the news must go on.
All good. Yeah, I came in hot from donuts with dad at my kid's preschool, so you and I haven't even really said hello yet, but man, how about that hockey game?
Woo! Loving it.
Right.
Loving it. Both of them. I mean,
Yeah.
The women are getting a little flack right now I'm not going to back down from it, but the women are getting some flack right now, but yeah, both the men and women were incredible. Beating Canada. Screw Canada, man. 51st.
I know. Yeah. And you know, like looking at the stat sheet, and you know, it's like they were beaten in every single statistical category except for the one that matters, right? I mean, the only one being, of course, like goals saved. But yeah, I mean, it's like the Canada was probably quote unquote the better team on paper, but that just shows American grit, and that's what I think the golden age requires if we're going to reach it.
Absolutely. On Y Chromes yesterday, I played a video of two boxers, and one of the boxers is just covering up like this, and he's just getting pummeled left, right, just getting crushed. And then all of a sudden you just see the guy go for an uppercut, and the guy sees the uppercut coming and just drops his guard, and boom, left hook right to the jaw, knocked him out. And that was the United States, the men's team, getting pummeled the whole game, just shot after shot, Hellebuck getting peppered, and then just all of a sudden Jack Hughes gets the break. Well, it wasn't Hughes that got the break. Hughes had the game winner. But yeah, fantastic stuff, man.
After getting his teeth knocked out, and like that's the grit. That's the grit. Is like any other sport, he would have been off the ice, right? Any other sport, but
absolutely.
Hockey. So that's what we need. We need more of that we need more toxic masculinity like that.
I agree. All right, guys, let's jump into the show. Before we do that, let's get a word from our sponsors. And if you guys have not seen the newest soft disclosure ad, stand by. It's epic.
In a quiet town where beards grow wild and lips dare to crack without permission, one woman has suffered.
Hi, I'm Margie, and I'm Jatriot's mother.
But the world would come to know her by another name, Madame Margie, the moistureless.
Jay came home with a lip balm. It's called Soft Disclosure.
With one miraculous application, her power awakened.
Within one day, my lips were healed. It was miraculous.
But salvation came at a cost. For in the shadowed lands known only as Badlands,
You boys at Badlands are so handsome.
she saw potential.
You're covering up your beautiful faces.
And she made her demand.
Shave them all off,
Or face the consequences. Beard oil will not save you now.
and you'll look so much better.
This summer, moisturize wisely and guard your beard, because Madame Margie, the moistureless, is always watching.
Badlands, softdisclosure.com, promo code Badlands. Pretty badass commercial right there.
Yeah, it's a great commercial. A shout out to J-Treat's mom.
My mom would echo the same sentiments as J-Treat's mom. Margie the moistureless. She would have the same exact reaction. She hates my beard. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Many such cases. But I mean, shout out to whoever's making these commercials too. These are creative.
Yeah, the commercials are absolutely badass. So guys, smash that thumbs up if you have not done so already, and let's go ahead and get into the news for today. And I want to start off with a few Epstein stories. And guys, I haven't talked much about the Epstein stories, but these ones are kind of interesting. And so I do want to lead with these ones here. First and foremost, Mandelson has been arrested over alleged leaks to Epstein. Again, this is much along the same lines as the former Duke, formerly known as Prince Andrew. This is along the same lines as his arrest. It's for leaking confidential information, but this one's going to have a little more blowback on Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer had appointed him as the British ambassador to the United States, one of the most lucrative diplomatic roles in the British government. From the Telegraph, Mandelson has been arrested on suspicion of committing misconduct in public office in a fresh blow to Sir Keir Starmer. Police launched an investigation into the disgraced peer 3 weeks ago after it emerged that he appeared to have leaked sensitive government documents to Jeffrey Epstein while serving as business secretary in Gordon Brown's cabinet. As I mentioned, he was the British ambassador at the time to the United States. Sir Keir survived the initial fallout from the Epstein files, but his future may hinge on the results of this week's by-election in Gorton and Denton, Greater Manchester, on Thursday. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. The government announced that a dossier of about 100,000 potentially embarrassing documents relating to his appointment and government work would not be released until after the by-election had concluded. Kemi Badenoch, the conservative leader, said that Mandelson's arrest was, quote, the defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership, going on to say that watching the man who appointed the highest position in our diplomatic service getting arrested by police, I think, is an image that is going to stay with all of us for many years to come. He has not released the information around the files. Instead, he has sacked the person who is supposed to be overseeing the release. I think that shows what kind of person the prime minister is. Let's pause there for just a second, because I feel like they're trying to kind of, in a roundabout way, take a shot at President Trump or give him kudos, because Starmer, first and foremost, Starmer's, they're withholding 100,000 documents that could be, potentially election influence, right? These are things people need to know before making decisions in an election. This is going back to the Hunter Biden laptop, which we know was famously suppressed or infamously suppressed here in the United States when it directly involved the quote unquote president's son. Similar situation here, also saying that Starmer fired the person that was in charge of releasing the documents. And, whether or not they're taking a shot at Trump here, Trump did the opposite. He did not fire anybody. He encouraged the releases. Even, he had obviously his words, it's a hoax and all that stuff, but he still pushed for the releases. I'll land that there for you, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is all interesting. It's one of those things where, Chris calls it withholding belief. I think that that's a really healthy just way to approach information like this, because in years past, years ago, like people would have gotten super excited one way or the other about this, about like things are happening. Maybe. I will say this: there are really encouraging things that I've seen developing in the British courts related to executive orders issued by Trump that were prosecuted, so to speak, or litigated during the Biden administration with the help of the Biden DOJ. I think all that's like devolution proof, devolution proofs. So the idea that this is like a cover up, that this must be a cover up because they're trying to do a limited hangout, maybe, but it's also possible that this could be the start of disclosure, the start of kind of unwinding this transnational cartel. Yeah, I mean, there's things about Britain that I find encouraging, and there's things about it that I find discouraging. One of the more discouraging things lately has just been like the rhetoric coming out of Nigel Farage. Little disappointed to see him like going hard in the paint against Putin. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. The last thing it points out here is that Mandelson was the business secretary from October 2008 until 2010. So that was right smack dab in the middle of Epstein's conviction, down here in Florida. And of course, their relationship continued. What's interesting is I know this is based on documents and everything else. Mandelson's gay. And so, the sexual aspect of this, the deviance, I mean, I don't know that I've ever heard of anything involving homosexuality with Epstein. And so, this might be actually a business, a relationship, a business relationship that resulted in, leaking to Epstein financial documents, information that might have benefited him in terms of, his empire. So
yeah, and that's the part that I think is lost on everybody, is because we focus on the salacious, we focus on like the sex scandal part of it, because sex sells. It's like that's like where everybody's mind goes to, because it is the explosive, potentially really explosive scandal that, if the information comes out that a lot of people think is there, we haven't quite seen it yet, and we haven't quite seen the true smoking gun. We've seen a lot of smoke. We've seen a lot of evidence to support, or I'd say circumstantial, rhetoric, that kind of thing, that certainly in context would contribute to some of the allegations that are out there. But I think it's important to point out that, there was other criminal activity, I think, that Epstein was probably involved in that has nothing to do with like sex, right? It has nothing to do with kids, or nothing to do with honeypotting or any of that stuff. And it all has to do with money laundering, and, being the apparatus that facilitates the organized crime syndicate. I mean, remember, this guy was the personal accountant of Adnan Khashoggi. That was his only client when he was plucked out of Bear Stearns to go do that. And that was like for a number of years. Adnan Khashoggi, of course, being like the #1 gun runner at the time, the uncle of Jamal Khashoggi, a Saudi national. So, I just think that there's a lot to Epstein that probably we don't talk about enough or focus on enough that could come out of this that really has nothing to do with sex. Like, we'll see.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Al Capone. I brought this up when we were talking about the former Duke, formerly known as Prince Andrew. Capone was brought down on tax evasion, but a lot of the crimes that the mob was committing were financial crimes. I mean, obviously they were doing hits and everything like that. When the finances got interfered with, you would be dealt with violently, but that's never what they were able to pin on him. If the same thing happens here, so be it. That's what's going to come about. We've got another story here that I think would lead to why we might not get to the bottom of the sexual depravity of Epstein and his conspirators. But before we do that, let's get into this next story here on Epstein. And this is from the Hollywood Reporter exclusive. Peter Attia. Is that how you say his name? Attia?
I'm not sure.
Attia? Peter Attia out at CBS News after Epstein files correspondence disclosures. Longevity guru Dr. Peter Attia is stepping aside as a contributor to CBS News after correspondence between him and Epstein and the researcher and health media personality came to light. Attia was one of a number of high-profile contributors that CBS editor-in-chief Barry Weiss brought on as part of her planned overhaul of the network news division. That said, Attia has been expected to remain a contributor to the network, with Weiss being a critic of so-called cancel culture. Bad look for Barry Weiss there. Of course, the Epstein emails damaged the reputation, even if he personally did not engage in or know about criminal activity, as Attia wrote in a note that he sent to his team and his patients. Attia's name appears some 1,700 times in the 3 million Epstein documents. The bulk of the emails between Attia and Epstein are from mid-2010s. Last time I checked, Gordon, in the mid-2010s, Epstein was already a convicted sex offender accused of soliciting prostitution from a minor. And so when Adia says he wasn't aware of that, that is just horrible situational awareness. I do have, go ahead, I'll let you jump in before
Well, no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, at the very least, it's just a profound lapse in judgment. And yeah, I mean, people getting fired in these situations, again, they're like bicamerally, you can look at it from one way or the other. Is it damage control? Is it actual accountability? As much as firing somebody can be accountability, it certainly is like a tacit admission that something is wrong and is wrong here by CBS. And the fact that Barry Weiss just brought this guy on is definitely notable. But I know there are people who think that like maybe this thing can be salvaged. The mainstream media, I don't think it can. I don't think it should be. But we're kind of looking at a dead cat bounce with efforts by like Barry Weiss to try to make CBS relevant again.
Yeah, no, thank you. She got a lot of notoriety with that one article in the Free Press about how she was duped on everything and then went right back to duping people.
Yeah, exactly. And these people are all career liars, basically. As far as I can tell, these people are career liars, and they're either career liars or they just have terrible discernment, like the worst discernment.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we shouldn't be listening to them.
I think I'm trying to I can't even remember. It was so unmemorable, the article that she wrote. I think it was about NPR, where she exposed, like she did the interview with the NPR senior editor. That was, or maybe he wrote that by himself. I can't even remember what her expose was. I remember it was a good piece. I'll give credit where credit's due, but then she just goes back into the same old. So on the Adia thing here, Joseph Everett put this out on X. Adia claims in an apology tweet that he was repulsed and nauseated by the November 2018 article on Epstein. On December 4th, 2018, he asked, what is the fallout from recent story? He asked of Epstein. And then on February 23rd of 2019, he was still in touch with Epstein, emailing with a subject line, where are you these days? So the article comes out. So again, this goes back to the point I made earlier that he had to have been aware of Epstein's crimes and what he was, what he pled guilty to, and still goes back to do it. So showing remorse now is not remorse. It's just, a plea for
damage control.
Right. It's a plea for somebody to, not cancel them all the way out or, whatever the hell you want to call it. Looking at some of the emails that he wrote, I mean, if you have children, cover your ears. Going back January 21st, 2016. No, thank you so much. This is what Adia wrote. No, thank you so much. See you next time. Hopefully Jeffrey Epstein is in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. On February 19th, 2016, he wrote to Epstein, well, pussy is indeed low carb. Still awaiting results on gluten content, though. Then he goes on to say, was it him that said this? No, it was from Epstein to Peter saying, afraid not, in response to, please tell me you found that picture online, bastard. And then you're the biggest problem. You know what the biggest problem with becoming friends with you? The life you lead is so outrageous, and yet I cannot tell a soul. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a strange exchange there for sure.
Yeah, a lot of resignations coming out. I mean, people that have nothing to hide don't resign and run away and hide.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like if they're not ashamed of what they were doing, then they're not like freaking out about it. Yep. I mean, the op against Steve Bannon right now is out of control. I mean, it is profound. And obviously there's a lot of characters in the truth community, so to speak, that are in it, like lobbing grenades at Bannon. So yeah, this is full blown, man. But again, none of this is a surprise to me. It's not a surprise that they're going after all the people that I consider to be the quote unquote white hats. And I always, reserve some reluctance, like some skepticism that maybe I'm wrong about that. But patterns of behavior, pattern recognition. That's kind of what this analysis is all about.
Yeah, the Bannon op, and he's still out there chugging away on War Room, not giving a shit about anything, knowing that he's got that 5-series documentary that'll be coming out soon enough. And, just get the egg above your head and get ready to crack it and wear that on your face. Cause I think Bannon's going to come out looking pretty pristine in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like when I said earlier about the financial crimes, like that part of Epstein, I mean, when you go listen to the 2-hour raw interview that was released between him and Epstein, it's very, I was saying this in our private chat. It's very clear that Bannon has a different opinion of Epstein than the mainstream narrative. The mainstream narrative is that Epstein was kind of this idiot, like degenerate, who was kind of handed the keys to this kingdom by Les Wexner that he did not deserve. And the question was like, well, why was he given all this money? Why was he given these houses, these cars, these planes, like all that? Right? Why was he given this lifestyle? And so the assumption was that, well, he was doing this because he was a honeypot agent, like he was the one, like the blackmailer in chief. That's like the narrative, right? That could be true. But it's very clear when you listen to Bannon speak to him and like the stuff that they were talking about, that Bannon thinks he's a financial genius, or at least that's how Bannon was speaking to him. I mean, Bannon could have been buttering his bread, trying to win his trust.
Yep.
But it's very clear that Bannon thinks that this guy understands the financial system in ways that other people don't. And when you look through some of these emails, like the people that he was advising, I mean, he was advising like the Saudi royal family. He was, or at least he was offering to. When he was meeting with MBS, it's like he was meeting with a lot of people. And when, of course, that scene in the interview where he's describing could all be nonsense, could be made up, but he said that he's in jail, back in whatever 2007, 2008, for the pedophile charge, and he's on the phone with, I forget who the two banks, I think it was JP Morgan
and Bear Stearns.
And he's sitting there talking to the heads of each company at the same time, because he has no idea what's going on. Like he doesn't know that there's like a financial crash happening, and they're like talking to him about it. I mean, if that is true, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, this guy certainly seemed to have like a really inflated ego when it came to the way he viewed himself. That speaks to things. If the heads of those banks are reaching or taking his call from jail on like in that moment when like everything is on fire, I don't know, man. Like this guy might know a lot of things, and he could be a keystone or something.
So I'm with you 100% that Bannon was, kind of playing to him a little bit, right? Building the rapport, because at one point he's like, you are one of the smartest financial minds in the world. But then on the other hand, he's also asking him like, are you the devil? Right? Just flat out. Yeah. Are you the devil?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting to me, Ghost, two things from that interview that really caught my attention was Jeffrey Epstein did not seem at all fazed by the financial crash, right? Which ironically occurred while he was in prison. Somebody that's the smartest financial mind in the world has major influence.
That's a good point. Like he's not worried about his assets. He's not like, oh man,
right.
I just lost everything. Right. Yeah.
Right. And it also happens when he's gone. Like he's in prison. Prolific pedophile is in prison, has all these people in the financial industry that might be implicated in some of this, including Bill Clinton, who he explicitly blames for the financial crisis.
Yes. That's true. That's true. There's truth to that. Like the Fair Housing Act and like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, like that, he is accurate when he describes that, when he says that, the mortgage crisis was caused by Bill Clinton and all of those fair housing policies that they implemented, where they were taking subprime mortgages, which is just people with bad credit, and then lumping them together with good mortgages, and then selling the banks were selling these portfolios to one another. I mean, that's what caused the whole thing to crash. And what's really funny is that from other research I've been doing, like on the Petro stuff, this guy, I think his name is it David Blafosky or something? He's a investigator. He is currently investigating. He's the guy who investigated the TARP stuff. Like the Senate appointed him back in 2008 to investigate all the TARP stuff, to investigate the default credit swap situation that was like a $55 million fraud scheme that led to the mortgage crisis. And he's the one who came back and like in the testimony to the Senate said this is all a scam. Like the taxpayer just got fleeced on this $3 trillion bailout. Like that was like, we just got fleeced. He's the one who said that. And now he's investigating Credit Suisse and all of like the cartel stuff that's going on with that. All specifically, his scope is supposed to be the Nazis, like the Nazis who kept their stuff post World War II in Credit Suisse. But it sounds like that's expanded, and he is supposed to deliver that report sometime this year, sometime in 2026. He's supposed to deliver a report to a Senate committee that is driven by the anti-Semitism angle. They're driven by we need to protect the Jews. We need to protect, this is all about the Nazis. We need to expose this Swiss bank for working with the Nazis. But I think it's actually going to, I think the report's going to explain that the cartels and like El Mincho, like these people that they're busting in Mexico now, they're the ones who are actually keeping their money in these banks, and they're doing it with the cooperation of like the biggest banks in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Colonel Towner talks about that all the time on book club and on other shows, the underground network of American banks that the cartels run their money through. Yep. The other big takeaway, Gordon, from that interview with Epstein, and this was just kind of a nuanced thing, but Bannon brings it up several times, and that is that while Epstein was in prison, all he would eat was Almond Joys. He did not trust the food to be poisoned. He thought he was going to be poisoned by the food in the prison, which, is, again, it's a nuanced thing, but considering that just, 10 years later, he would be on trial, not even convicted yet. So he's in there convicted, knowing this is my fate. I'm going to spend, the next couple of years in this minimum security prison. Fast forward to 2019, and he's back in prison, unconvicted, like in jail. He's not convicted at this point, and he hangs himself. This is the guy that ate Almond Joys religiously in order to avoid being poisoned.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're eating poison to avoid poison.
Well, and now I look at the whole Bannon-Trump timeline, because that's a fascinating timeline. Bannon comes in at the last minute in 2016 as a campaign manager. He's the one who, when the Billy Bush tapes come out, grabbed him by the pussy, who stands up in the room and says, everyone else is like, Trump should step aside and let Pence take over and run and defeat Hillary. And Bannon says, absolutely not. He tells Trump to stand in the breach and just own it, and the American people would stand with you. And he was 100% right. And then less than a year later, August of 2017, him and Trump have this fight, right? And he leaves. And then later in January of 2018, which is one of the most fascinating times of Trump's entire first term, is January, February of 2018, specifically around like the State of the Union and everything that was going on there. But Trump tells, calls him Sloppy Steve. And he's like, Sloppy Steve, Steve's such a slob, like, he's doing the whole Trumpomania thing. At the time, I recognized that was kayfabe. I didn't know what kayfabe was, but I was like, this is bullshit. Like, there's no way that Bannon and Trump just took on the biggest cartels in the world, like in terms of politics, the Bush family, the Clinton family, and then months later have this big falling out and like aren't friends anymore. Like you don't go to war with someone like that and then 6 months later, break up because of some argument. But remember, Bannon was like he was living under a microscope that entire year. Like, the media was reporting more on his activity than they were on Trump. They were obsessed with every single thing he was doing. The media was like scrutinizing where he was going to lunch, who he was meeting with. Like, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't scratch his back without the media reporting it. And then all of a sudden they stopped reporting on it because he wasn't a character anymore in Trump's little soap opera, because Trump expelled him. And at the time I thought, well, that must be because Bannon's going to go create like a media company and do what he was doing at Breitbart, right? He's going to run like the counterinsurgency, 5th generation warfare. That happened, of course, but he then goes and reaches out to Jeffrey Epstein, and he's like, Jeffrey Epstein, hey, genius, hey, love you, like, you're great, like, let's meet, like, let's talk, like, let's do an interview. You're awesome. I want to help you, fix your image. I want to help. And this is before Epstein gets arrested. He's doing this. He's like, I want to help you rebrand. I want to help you reintroduce you to the world, right? Feeding into that ego. You got to wonder what they talked about on all that, like the hours and hours of footage that they talked. I mean, if these people wanted to kill Jeffrey Epstein and Bannon wanted to speak to him, and from the 2-hour video that we saw, Bannon did not seem as focused on like the sex stuff as he did on the financial stuff. And you got to imagine Bannon's the one who released that video. He didn't talk about it, but he's the one who released that. Why would they want to kill Jeffrey Epstein? Is it because he was the blackmailer in chief who had all of the insurance files on like the blackmail of everybody doing stuff with kids? Maybe. Or is it because he had the knowledge base of how the entire financial system works from the criminal, how the crime syndicate launders all their money through the entire financial system, which in many ways is a much bigger deal than the blackmail stuff, because the blackmail stuff, you fix that and it's like, all right, so we're going to get this corrupt cartel out of our politics, right? Bring in like earnest politicians, keep going. You introduce the financial stuff. You're talking about the entire financial system being a cartel. That fundamentally changes the entire world. That fundamentally changes the way the entire world operates if the entire banking system is actually a crime syndicate. That's a much bigger deal than the entire political system being a crime syndicate, because the banking system controls the political system, right?
Yeah, that's the implication of the crash happening when he's in prison. You know, when the opportunity for them to turn the screws on him, which is also why he's eating almond joys, because they're afraid that if he spills the beans on what he knows now, and that continues on to 2019, and perhaps, you know, what you mentioned about, you know, Trump calling Bannon Steve the Slob and sloppy and everything else like that. It's reminiscent of what President Trump did with Michael Cohen. And a lot of people think Michael Cohen was operating, you know, behind the scenes, you know, still in Trump's good graces. Trump puts out this, you know, public image of what he thinks of individuals. And so that other people like Epstein are like, oh, Trump is on Steve Bannon is on Trump's bad graces. So when Bannon reaches out to Epstein and says, "Hey, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this," it lowers his guard, and he goes in there and he gives him 50 hours. Steve Bannon butters him up, and, you know, everything else flatters him and all that. And then we haven't even begun to see the stuff that Bannon's able to get into with Epstein. Then, you know, of course, this leads to Epstein's arrest and his alleged suicide. I don't know, man. This is really interesting. Maybe they suicide Epstein when they realize that Bannon sat down with him for 50 hours and they're like, oh shit, Bannon's probably got some pretty good stuff. Because by that time, Bannon had been back on, you know, Trump's good graces. They kind of mended the fake fight, you know. Interesting.
Yeah, and last thing on Bannon is, with all the people attacking him right now, and it's like basically the entire truth community is trying to it's a digital lynch mob basically, right? Trump is like the one person who is backing Bannon. He put out a Truth Social post like a month ago where there's a picture of Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon, and Trump was like, these two have been put through more than anybody else. Like they're true patriots, right? So like when the boss speaks, you got to listen to the signal, and he puts out a lot of noise, but he also puts out the signal, and you got to learn how to like lock into the signal when he puts it out there.
Yeah, let's jump into this article now. So this is the second article from the Telegraph that we're going to cover, which is fascinating to me because the Telegraph, you know, British media, huge intelligence influence, we believe. And so, you know, this is very interesting that they have this article out there as well. Exclusive: Epstein hid secret files in storage units across the United States. I mean, this is, they might have the exclusive on this, but this isn't surprising, right? We've often said that, you know, if Epstein was doing things for blackmail, coercion, or whatever, it most likely wasn't Epstein that was actually the one that was using this stuff. It was probably, you know, he was being handled by some intelligence agencies, plural, and they were the ones that were gathering this information. Now, if you're Jeffrey Epstein and you know, you kind of see the writing on the wall that you're an expendable asset, or at least that, you know, you can be, you know, cast to the side, you're going to build your own, you know, kind of file, right? So to speak.
Yeah. Insurance file.
Yeah. An insurance, right? Dead man switch, whatever you want to call it. This is indicative of that. Now, again, take this with a grain of salt, because it is coming from the Telegraph, and it's very interesting that they're putting this out right now as Keir Starmer is in a world of shit with the Mandelson and the Prince Andrew thing. Documents uncovered by this newspaper show that the pedophile paid private detectives to remove equipment from his Florida home in an apparent attempt to prevent investigators from finding it. The documents also show that he rented 6 storage units across the United States and used them to house items from his properties, including computers from Little St. James Island. He leased at least 1 unit from 2003 when he was part of a Florida social set that included Donald Trump, because you got to get the token Donald Trump reference in there. Credit card receipts obtained by the Telegraph show regular storage payments continued until 2019, the year of his death. Now, I got to stop right there. If this guy is as smart as he says he is and everything else, and whose name are those credit card receipts in? Because you would not be paying for storage units using credit cards in your name if you're trying to, you know, obfuscate an investigation.
Yeah, hide stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Search warrants reviewed by the Telegraph suggest that U.S. authorities never raided the lockers, raising the possibility that they may contain unseen evidence relating to Epstein and his associates. While Epstein has long been suspected of collecting compromising materials on his associates, relatively few such photographs or videos have emerged. That has fueled claims that the DOJ is seeking to shield powerful figures from scrutiny, although authorities have repeatedly denied this. Again, if we're talking about secret storage units, we're talking about a guy that has a dead man switch or a cache of evidence that he wants to keep for the opportune moment. The DOJ would not be privy to that. And so when the DOJ says we haven't seen anything, they very well could be telling the truth in that matter. The intelligence obviously would have their evidence that they or their blackmail material that they collected if that's what they were doing. And Epstein, by maintaining his own tranche of files, would have his own blackmail in the background, and the DOJ would not be privy to any of it. So this is kind of interesting. Epstein ordered staff to install secret cameras inside Kleenex boxes at his home after a contact told him, quote, the Russians may come in handy. Not sure the context of that. I know I saw earlier that the British Parliament, it wasn't British, it was in Britain's Parliament or in the EU, but was it Poland that said that Epstein was a Russian spy? I think it was Poland.
Well, it was the whole unipolar hegemony apparatus. As soon as everybody started talking about like Israel, that's when they said, well, he was obviously a Russian spy, even though Putin does not appear in the files other than like other people talking about him, and not necessarily in favorable ways.
Well, right. So I'm not sure when it says the Russians may come in handy. Again, that could mean a lot of different things. We know that he liked Russian girls, right? There was evidence that, a lot of the Janes that he used were Russians. So it could be a context to that. It could be, FSB, KGB, whatever, dependent. Well, the KGB is long gone by the time he was involved. But anyways, the key here is that the staff installed secret cameras in the Kleenex boxes, which, if the intelligence was the one that was handling him and the intelligence was the one that was gathering the evidence and whatnot, him installing his own cameras would be that insurance policy, in my opinion.
That is a really good point. That is really interesting. And I'll add, like, when it comes to when they say the Russians, like, remember, no group is monolithic. Like when you're saying the Russians, like, okay, so like he talks about Russian girls, they come up all the time in these emails, right? So that implies that there is some sort of an organization that's supplying these girls, or at least creating like a supply chain of them, whether they're models or prostitutes or trafficked. That implies that there's going to be a Russian organization doing this. The obvious assumption there is like the Russian mafia. And there's many different facets of the Russian mafia. There's the Russian mafia, there's the Ukrainian mafia, there's the Jewish mafia, and all organized crime that we understand in the West, even looking at the Italian mafia, which learned how to be a mafia from the Jewish mafia in the 1800s in New York. All of them were educated on this stuff, like how to go from being a street level gang to being a white collar crime organization. They all learned that from the Eastern Europeans, primarily the Ukrainians. So that's like that part of the world, like Eastern Ukraine, Eastern Europe, like Ukraine, which is just a word that means Russian borderlands. That is where a lot of organized crime comes from, just historically. So yes, there are Russian mafias. And yeah, Putin, I think, probably does have connections to them one way or the other. I think anytime you're in politics, you're going to have contact with those people. But he's also gone after a lot of those people. He's gone after all those oligarchs. He's chased them out of Russia. He's chased them out of Ukraine. And I think that's a big, big element of this Russia-Ukraine war.
Yeah, that's a great point. The monolithic point. That would be like Russia, calling the Americans MS-13, right? MS-13. The Americans are dealing drugs throughout the United States. It's like that's a gang of mainly foreign nationals or illegals, whatever. Or, you could use something a little more concise, like the Joe Biden administration, or, something along those lines.
Clintons, the Podestas, they're all Americans, right? I mean, technically, if you're saying the Americans, you could be referring to the Podestas, you could be referring to the Clintons, the Bushes. I mean, they're all Americans, technically, right?
And so when people doom out over the Russians, the Russians are doing it, and it's like, well, who's the Russians? It's a country equally as big as ours. I think it's a little bit. They have fewer people than us, right? They have like
I think it's 100. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's 170 million. I want to say something like that. But yeah, it's a population much smaller, but geographically much larger.
Yeah. So reading on, Epstein instructed private detectives to move computers into another lockup after apparently being tipped off about a police raid on his home in the mid-2000s. Private investigators were also asked to open a secret storage unit in New York on his behalf. So that might mean the investigators were using their credit cards while being paid tens of thousands of dollars, for their work. Separately, Epstein's staff discussed moving computers and CDs from his private island in the Virgin Islands into hidden lockups. Material could predate the earliest tranche of Epstein emails. And that's all I've got from that article. So pretty interesting there. I mean, that was always kind of a given that, if there was something that Epstein had, it's likely that we wouldn't know about it. Like it wouldn't be something that would, first and foremost, we'll never see the videos and images that allude to any sexual deviance from him or any of his co-conspirators.
Yep.
But again, they might not even have it. Which is why none of this will ever, like what we're getting in the Epstein files now in America, will never result in a prosecution.
Yeah, maybe. And if there is a forthcoming prosecution, people want to hold out hope for that, then I wouldn't expect those documents to be released to the public prior, because if they were, by the way, guys, you would get a mistrial. If the documents were released to the public prior to the trial occurring, then that's a mistrial, because now you've swayed public opinion, and anybody, you can't find a jury that's going to be impartial, because all the juries are now tainted. They're exposed to the information. I'm not necessarily suggesting that that's what's happening here. It's a possibility, but that would certainly explain why there are files that are withheld that haven't been released yet.
You'd also be giving some of the richest, most powerful people in the world the opportunity to do anything they can to cover up any evidence, to get their ducks in a row legally, financially, and even disappear. And I mean, I know getting a little conspiratorial here, but we're, full blown, like, disappear to a non-extradition state, change your identity completely, and
fake your death.
Yeah, fake your death.
Which is probably not that hard to do if you have money.
Take a submersible sub down to the Titanic and have it implode, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Not saying that was faking their death, but you have no way to verify that there's anybody down there. Anyways, let's see what we got next coming up here. Let's see. We could probably get into a sponsor here. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that, guys. They can freeze your accounts. Speaking of, they can freeze your accounts. They can shut off your cards. They can lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you. They control you. And that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. It's real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That is power. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. This wallet is yours forever. And that is part of the parallel economy. I said the other day, we don't have, when President Trump announced that guy to be the new Fed chair, or to nominate him to be the Fed chair, we don't have any parallel economies in finance, really. I mean, they're starting to come up, but that's a key right there, getting involved in that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I know Chris and John were talking about this on Saturday night on GBPH, but Chris brought up a really good point about the sanctions and the tariffs, and like how that is how they control everything. It's how they control countries. It's how they control people. It's how they control behaviors. It's how they control churches, guys. Do you remember why churches closed down during COVID? It was because their 501 whatever
Their tax exempt status.
yeah, their tax exempt status was threatened. And then it's like right now the churches in Jerusalem are getting their bank accounts frozen by the Jerusalem government because they refuse to pay taxes on these new property taxes they've never had to pay in their 1,500-year history. And now all of a sudden they're being levied new taxes that they refuse to pay. And so their bank accounts are being frozen. Well, if we have a new financial system where the government can't just go freeze your bank account whenever it wants, that totally changes that dynamic. They can't do that anymore. And that's what they did to Putin in Russia in 2022. And it led to Russia completely decoupling from the Western banking system.
Yeah, we've been talking about this a lot on Badlands Book Club because we're doing stolen elections and the whole Venezuela steals elections op that's been going on, and a lot of the stuff that they talk about and you can back this up about Maduro and Chavez destroying the Venezuelan economy. That wasn't Maduro and Chavez. That was us. We destroyed it with sanctions and terror. Well, not so much tariffs, but
they created an economy. They're the ones who created the middle class when they reclaimed the revenue from the oil sales and then formed banks, and then the banks lent the money out to all the people so they could start businesses and buy houses. Like that created the economy, and then it was the deep state that destroyed that through different mechanisms.
Yep. All right, let's and by the way, Badlands Book Club tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern. Tune in for that. Me, Ash, and Colonel Towner are still talking about the stolen elections book. And then tonight we're also going to be having on the State of the Union. So we'll be covering that, I think, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Badlands. So tune in for that as well. And Brad and Abby Live go after that. Although I don't know if they're going to do it because I know Abby was not feeling so great yesterday. So maybe if Ash is in the chat, she can let me know if Abby is going to be up for it. All right, let's jump into this story here, and then we'll get into a story about tariffs. Just the news: Trump poised to fill 2 influential appeals court vacancies. Last week, Chief Judge Jeffrey Sutton of the 6th Circuit of Appeals in Cincinnati and Chief Judge Deborah Ann Livingston of the 2nd Circuit Court of Appeals in New York City announced their plans to assume senior status later this year. Now, senior status means that they're over 65 years old, have more than 10 years of service, and they basically take on like a semi-retired role. And I apologize. The roofers are literally above my studio right now. So if you hear banging, I'm sorry.
Can't hear anything.
Okay, cool. This gives them literally a senior role where they're semi-retired and they only take about 25% of their caseload that they normally have. They still have full pay, cost of living, and all that shit, which is kind of absurd. But, the big takeaway here is that President Trump will now get to appoint 2 judges to that court to fill their roles, because while they're on senior status, their actual full-time duty gets taken over by somebody. So it says the 6th Circuit, which hears appeals from Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Tennessee, already holds a conservative supermajority. And it really is a shame that we have to label it that, a conservative supermajority. I understand that the judges, we all know what way they lean, but it's a shame that it's gotten to that point because the law should be non-political, but
impartial. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, impartial. Yeah. The 2nd Circuit presents a more consequential opening covering Connecticut, New York, and Vermont. That court presently maintains a narrow liberal majority. So with the Trump appointment, that court will take on a neutral, right? It'll have liberals and conservatives in that role. I don't know who's going to be advising the president on who to appoint, but hopefully it's better than some of the other appointments that we've seen, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and jump into this story. Talking about tariffs from CNBC, FedEx sues for a refund of the Trump tariff days after Supreme Court ruling. This is interesting. FedEx has sued the government seeking a quote-unquote full refund of the money the shipping giant paid for tariffs, which the Supreme Court ruled last week was illegal. This is the first filed by an American company seeking a refund for the tariffs after the Supreme Court's decision. Other companies have filed lawsuits staking claim to their refunds before the High Court ruled, including Costco. Jump down here. In September, FedEx said it expected it would take a $1 billion hit to its earnings for the fiscal year because of the U.S. trade policies, not all of which involved IEEPA duties. The dollar amount represents 16% of their total earnings for the prior fiscal year. Now, I've got a question here, Gordon. Haven't we been told by all the authoritative sources in the mainstream Mockingbird media and all the financial gurus and everything else that tariffs are a tax on us? So
Yeah.
why is FedEx suing? They don't have standing to sue. They're just going to pass these expenses on down to us if they've done so already. If FedEx recovers and we can show that FedEx actually adjusted their pricing based on the tariffs that President Trump was implementing, can we turn around and sue FedEx for that $1 billion?
That's an interesting point. That is an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, this is why like honest conversation and like honest dialogue is so important, because I think that these career liars, and these career liars are all over the place. They wear MAGA hats. They're in the MAGA movement. They're in the truth community, and they are liars. They're absolute liars when it comes to how this stuff works. And the tariff thing gets me just about as triggered as anything else, because it is absolutely a draconian system when you have a quote unquote free and open marketplace where anybody can just come and dump their cheap, worthless goods in your market and undercut you. And, you know, it's all made by slaves in a third world country. And there's no accountability for that. It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. And yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court ruling on this certainly creates a whole shit show of lawfare and everything that's going to unfold. And that's going to be a real pain, I think, to endure. You know, that's a whole headache that I can't even imagine having to deal with. But the whole reason for this, by the way, the reason that I'm very disappointed, like the Gorsuch sided with the deep state on this, the corporatists, because the real thing that the tariff situation represents, the tariff program represents, is the liberation of the American people from the tax system. That is what the tariff system is meant to do. It's because you are a slave because of the tax system. That is why. The banking system is the apparatus that enforces that. You don't pay your taxes, you know, they come in, they freeze your bank account, they garnish your wages, whatever. They only do that because the banks collaborate with them on making sure that they are able to illegally, unconstitutionally extract your wealth from you. The tariff program is meant to end the tax program, because the tax program is what is how the government keeps you under its thumb and gets you jumping through its hoops. Imagine if everybody just got a 20 to 30% raise right now in America because they didn't have to pay income tax anymore. Imagine how that would, by itself, before doing anything else, before changing any other like aspects, regulation, tariff, whatever, that alone would fundamentally transform the economy. If everyone all of a sudden got a 30% raise because they didn't have to pay income tax anymore, that would change the economy, I think, more so than any other single act. And that is why they can't allow the tariff program to move forward. And I'm very encouraged that Scott Bessent and Trump seem to have a plan B for how they're going to do this. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Bobo Ufu earlier ranted they are trying to pass a bill to refund tariffs shot at everyone. And so let me jump into this real quick, because it was introduced yesterday. Ron Wyden, Markey Shaheen, and 19 Senate Democrats released legislation requiring refunds of Trump's illegal tariffs. Hopefully this is dead on arrival, but it says to date, the Trump admin has collected an estimated $175 billion in illegal tariff revenue, raising taxes on products from nearly every country on earth and jacking up prices for American families. Again, the prices on American families are not going up. I mean, they're going up a little bit, but not anything abnormal, first and foremost. Second of all, the Inflation Reduction Act and all the shit we saw from the Biden administration where eggs were $9 for a dozen. Eggs are at the lowest they've been, I think, in like 8 years right now, 7 or 8 years. I was looking this up last week when we were talking about the tariffs before the ruling came down. And, you know, that's just, it's not true. And like you said, this is the Band-Aid where, you know, you got to rip it off and it's going to hurt, but it gets better over time. The golden age, like you said, a 30% increase in people's revenue because they don't have that same tax burden. And then the re-onshoring of quality jobs back into the United States and remanufacturing, the reintroduction of manufacturing to the United States. So again, this is a bill here that I haven't looked into the specifics on it, but this is clearly, you know, just an attempt to try and appeal to the voters in a midterm election. It's not going to go anywhere. It should not be, you know, it'll get shot down. The Democrats aren't going to get any victories out of the Republicans. but they'll
Yeah.
turn around and say that the Republicans shot this bill down when we tried to give you free money. And the retards out there in the Democratic Party will be like, free money? The Republicans don't want us to have free money? Oh, let's not vote for them. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and this is why, like, it's important that, like, the liars be called out, the people who are misleading us be called out, and we learn how to talk about this stuff in a constructive way, which takes practice. Doesn't mean every time we talk about it we get it right. But like what you just said, what they said about it's a tax on the American people. It's only a tax on the American people if the goods that are being brought in and tariffed are only available from like an international foreign distributor. And honestly, if you go and you look, like, because I've tracked the tariff stuff last year, whenever that situation arose where here's a product that is unique to this one country, Trump almost always gave them an exemption on that product because he was like, I don't want this product to get, for people to have to pay more for something that they're used to getting, and it only comes from this one country. That's normally where he would use that as a leverage point to negotiate with that foreign country. Like, he always uses the example of France and their champagne and their wines. Like, that's one example that he gives. But he almost always creates those exemptions for that specific product because he understands that the American people can't create it themselves. Now, if we don't have our own manufacturing, if we don't have our own retailers, if we're completely dependent on these large corporations, these Fortune 500 companies to make this shit in a foreign country and then ship it in, then yes, tariffs are a tax on you, but that's not because tariffs are evil. That's because your economy is fake and you don't have a real economy. You have the appearance of a real economy, but you're a slave. You are completely beholden to corporatists who ship in your food, who ship in your goods, who ship in everything. Instead of growing your food in your backyard, go to your local supermarket, like the big ones, Kroger, whatever. Go pick up a pack of strawberries, look on the back, see where the strawberries are grown. I guarantee you they're grown in Mexico. They're grown in Central America. Why are we not growing fruit here and selling it here? Like, why are the big box stores not selling fruit that's grown down the street?
Glycophosphates.
Yeah. These are conversations that we should be having. And like, yes. Anna Paulina Luna, who wants to talk about aliens and all this other gay stuff, like, why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about how these corporatists have literally surgically dismantled our entire country, our entire economy, and we have a fake economy that's based completely on financial speculation where people gamble on what the weather is going to be in Oklahoma next week and whether the trucks are going to be able to ship whatever across the country. That's what our derivative market is based on, and it's all fake. And the derivative swaps, I mean, when that thing comes crashing down, that's going to be a real crisis. Like, why don't we go back to building ships? Why don't we go back to making things like with our hands like we used to? They don't want us to do that.
Yeah, I saw somebody in the chat say Nevada, and I'm not going to dox them, but Nevada prices aren't going down. That's not true. 2022, your average gas price was $4.88 a gallon. 2023 it was $3.90. Right now it's $3.69. So I mean, it's not the best improvement, but considering you have a government in your own state, your own state, you're the only Republican state that signed on to the lawsuit to try and stop the federal government from auditing your general subsidies, your general welfare subsidies. So I mean, it's not as good as it could be, but it will continue to get better. You're also a state very heavily dependent on tourism, and tourism is not doing so well right now.
Yeah, well, tourism only works when you have a strong economy. When you have a strong economy and people have, expendable income, then tourism's great. Like, you can make a lot of money on tourism. There are plenty of countries that survive on tourism. Europe, like, large sectors of the European economy is based on tourism, right? But you have to have a real economy behind that's actually driving the tourism. And these are the things, by the way, that MBS and President Trump and Scott Bessent and Steve Bannon's been talking about this for years. He's been talking about the economic restructuring, how we need to completely rebuild our economy from the ground up. And if you look at the deals that Trump, this is what fascinated me about the deals that Trump made last year. The deals that he made worked hand in hand with the tariffs. The deals that he made were, okay, Japan, you're going to invest and rebuild our entire steel industry. Nippon Steel, you're going to build our entire steel industry. Okay, now we're going to get South Korea and Japan to buy ships from us. Now our shipbuilders are going to build ships again. Like, he's creating supply and he's creating demand at the same time. And that is going to transform our economy. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take months, if not years, for that to really, really take off. But none of this stuff happened in the first term, by the way.
Yep.
He tariffed $34 billion worth of stuff from China, and I think he tariffed steel and maybe aluminum. That's it. That's all that got tariffed. Everything else was all smoke, was all like bluster and rhetoric with no actuals. He just talked about tariffing Vietnam and whoever, and then didn't actually do it. Now he has tariffed everybody, and I think the impact is going to be like many orders of magnitude more profound than it was for the 2019 economy.
I saw somebody in the chat, you're talking about strawberries and everything else. And somebody in the chat says California used to be covered in orange groves. So did Florida. Florida, I mean, literally our state flower is the orange blossom. And in 2000, like in the early 2010s, I think it was like 2011 or so, we had citrus canker, right? And citrus canker wiped out oranges. Like they were coming to your house and they'd be like, oh, you have an orange tree in your backyard. You have to cut it down. And we're like, why do I have to cut it down? You have an orange tree or a grapefruit tree. You have to cut it down because of citrus canker. And they gave us like $150 Walmart gift card for cutting down our trees. Killed our orange industry down here. Now, granted, we still have it in the middle of the state to an extent, but nothing like it used to be. Like you don't see the orange groves nearly the same that you used to see them down here. And we ended up that same year, the imports into the United States shifted significantly in favor of Mexico and Chile for oranges. And you know who our president was at that time, or excuse me, not president, who our governor was at that time? Jeb Bush oversaw that whole debacle, made Walmart billions of dollars with subsidized gift cards that the government gave to people to cut down their orange trees.
I mean, dude, do you know how many tobacco warehouses I have renovated like professionally, where like old giant wooden buildings with massive wooden timbers where they would hang tobacco to dry. This is, in the region between Richmond and Raleigh. That's called Tobacco Row. None of those places exist anymore. Marlboro still has a giant factory down there, but Petersburg, go to Petersburg, Virginia, and you want to see dilapidated, you want to see economic depression, you want to see third world, go to Petersburg, Virginia. Our entire country back in the colonial era was built on tobacco and cotton. Okay. Like without tobacco, America would have never happened. And yet we don't grow tobacco anymore. Like we import it. Like this is how these scumbags, these absolute devils, these demons have destroyed your economy by preventing you from growing oranges in your backyard because they cut your orange trees down. Like, if you're not mad about that, if you're obsessed with like whatever the shiny object is they have you angry about today, like you should be like livid at what they have done to your economy. They have taken something from you that was precious, that God gave to us with this land, and they have destroyed America. That is not an overstatement. It's not hyperbole to say that.
Yep. So this story kind of ties into this a little bit here. U.S. Supreme Court to hear arguments in climate lawsuit that threatens to cost consumers billions. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case brought by oil companies facing a lawsuit in Colorado that seeks compensation for damages allegedly caused by climate change. In 2018, the city and county of Boulder filed a lawsuit seeking damages from weather events that they alleged were caused by burning fossil fuels. They also accused the oil companies of deceiving the public about the dangers of climate change. The Colorado Supreme Court allowed the case to proceed in Colorado courts. The companies are now asking the Supreme Court to overturn that decision. Boulder's lawsuit is but one of dozens of climate lawsuits, part of a climate advocacy campaign, lawfare, aimed at enacting climate. This is key, guys. If there's one thing you take away from this article, let me read this part again. Boulder's lawsuit is but one of dozens of climate lawsuits that are part of a climate advocacy campaign aimed at enacting climate policy through the courts in order to circumnavigate legislatures which are reluctant to ban fossil fuels. We talk about this a lot when we talk about the lawfare and what people are taught in law school now. These weaponized Frankfurt schools, these law schools that are complete, full-blown, Marxist, whatever you want to call it. But they don't teach the law anymore. They don't teach the Constitution anymore. They teach people how to subvert it, how to interpret law with a broad stroke of the pen and it could mean this and this. And this is a lot of what we got out of the Supreme Court in the tariff decision, the major questions doctrine, right? Like how can you interpret this law in order for the bureaucracy to implement whatever the bleep they want to implement, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So reading on, it says, if successful, the settlements would cost the oil companies billions of dollars, which would then be passed on to consumers. Going back to that FedEx lawsuit on the tariffs, it passed on to us. So if FedEx wins, we're going to sue the shit out of FedEx. The theories put forth could easily apply to any industry with significant greenhouse gas emissions, including utilities and manufacturers. This is a big story right here. This, whether or not they allow this to go forward. Let me just real quick, Gordon, and we'll get some comment on this, but yeah. Sunoco Energy and ExxonMobil argue that the Constitution does not allow for government entities to sue under state laws for injuries alleged to have been caused by pollution coming from sources outside of the state. The Clean Air Act preempts state law, and they are asking that the Supreme Court clarify if state law can be used to seek damages from the global issue of climate change. So in other words, is Colorado law the appropriate jurisdiction to bring a case that has national implications? The climate change, obviously, the climate change, which is all fucking bullshit, is clearly not just coming from Colorado. It's coming from many other places. The Clean Air Act is federal law. Does the Colorado state law preempt the federal law? No, it doesn't. I mean, that's the supremacy clause of the Constitution and federal law. So, yeah, I'll land that there.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, anytime they start talking about the bureaucracy, like, it makes me angry that they are they're worried about that. That's your concern. Your concern is how the bureaucracy is going to deal with this. How about this? No bureaucracy. How about this? Tear down the bureaucracy, because the bureaucracy is inherently anti-human. The bureaucracy is a machine that views humans as a disease that needs to be culled from the earth. That is Malthusianism is the technical term. A guy named Thomas Malthus in the 1700s came up with a theory that populations grow at a linear or at an exponential rate, and food sources grow at a linear rate, and eventually the exponential rate exceeds the linear rate. And therefore, if we don't figure out ways to cull the population and control the population growth, eventually the people will reproduce. The reproduction rates will cause humanity to starve to death in some sort of like dystopian post-apocalyptic winter, like nuclear winter. All of that's a lie. That is all complete bullshit that was thought up by a bunch of morons, probably devil worshippers like Thomas Malthus. And then it was adopted by these climate cultists who are not only in the Democrat Party, but in the Republican Party too, because they're all communists.
Yeah, whatever's the shiny object for the Democrats is not the shiny object for the Republicans, and vice versa. And so they just latch on to whatever that shiny object is. There was a point I wanted to make about something you said, and I can't remember what the heck it was now. Oh, speaking of climate change, my roofers that are here doing my roof in the middle of South Florida at 11 a.m. wearing long sleeves and sweaters.
Yeah, right.
Climate change, though. I mean, they're out there banging on the roof and physical exercise.
It's been 20 degrees every day for the past 3 months, every morning in Virginia, which is not typical. Like typically, it'll be 70 one day, it'll be 20 one day. It fluctuates. This winter has been cold. It's been cold every single day, and for Virginia, that is very unusual. For ice and snow to stick around for 3 weeks, that's unheard of in Virginia.
So while these climate advocacy groups are pushing their, the agendas and everything else and using their lawfare, by the way, I'd love to get an idea of how much of those orgs are financed by either the billionaires or by the, smurfing Act Blue type stuff that's been laundered out of our own taxpayer resources and allocated to the lawfare. This is what we're getting from Gavin Newsom, and we're going to get a lot from Gavin Newsom in this episode today. But check this clip out. As the war is waging in Colorado, which, is very parallel with California in terms of their absurdities. This is what Gavin Newsom's talking about.
No doubt that the Democratic Party needs to be, dare I say, more culturally normal. I believe that. Less prone to spending disproportionate amount of time on pronouns, identity, politics, more focused on tabletop issues, things that really matter, the stacking of stress in terms of electricity bills and childcare costs and health care and obviously housing costs, and how easily we get trapped in that, how I've fallen prey to that. I mean, here I was, way out front on marriage equality. So I understand this from both on the receiving end of this and on the
All right, so it's interesting that he talks about affordability and all that. Meanwhile, you know, the entire leftist regime is backing this type of climate policy that, you know, is being litigated in Colorado that would have monumental effects on the fossil fuel industry, which is still the most efficient means of us having transportation and all sorts of other things, heating and cooling of our homes. There's no question that their green scam, their money laundering operation during the Biden administration is woefully inadequate for period. Like California's full of windmills, right? Woefully inadequate.
It's
you know,
garbage.
it's
garbage.
absolute garbage.
Garbage.
And so, you know, supporting, and I don't know what he said about this Colorado litigation, but, you know, imagine saying we need to focus on affordability like electricity and housing. Meanwhile, you're bringing in migrants that are getting propped up by government subsidies for federal housing. And at the same time, supporting lawsuits that ban fossil or attempt to ban or strictly mitigate fossil fuels. It's completely counterintuitive.
Fossil fuels, dinosaur juice, right?
Fossil fuels, dino juice, right?
Dinosaur
Bones,
juice. Like we should only call it dinosaur juice moving forward because it's so stupid. Like oil does not come from the carcasses of dead dinosaurs. Can we just like that is the stupidest thing that anybody has ever come up with. These cultists came up with that stuff. What was I going to say? Yeah. So as these two parties that are a uniparty, of course, they're going to merge. Like I think you're going to see them actually merge here because what Newsom's saying is there. He's like, we need to become more pragmatic. We need to be more like to appeal to more voters, right? To get this, to win this public mandate because elections are fake and gay. We need to bring it back to the center. We need to go back to being more pragmatic. That's an Ouroboros because they have already conditioned and trained their militant, the militant wing of their party to hate that. And so when they say culturally normal, that is going to trigger all of their like support base into revolting against them, which is fantastic. At the same time, though, CannCon, you have the right now moving to the left, and they've always been leftists. I mean, the Republican Party has always been, since 1971, a leftist organization when it was infiltrated by Irving Kristol and all of his friends from Brooklyn. But the Republicans are now the ones calling for speech censorship, and they're now the ones calling for, you know, hate speech laws. And hey, maybe we should control conversations. Maybe this person shouldn't be platformed. Anti-Semitism. That is, you take that word and you replace it with racist, and that is the Democrats 10 years ago. But now the Republicans are the ones doing it, and it is amazing watching the same people like the earnest MAGA voter who 10 years ago saw it for what it was when it was coming out of the mouth of Gavin Newsom and it was about racism or sexism or whatever. They saw it for what it is. But now, because it is anti-Semitism, something that has an emotional component for them, for evangelicals, they're like, yes, you're right. We should cancel Tucker Carlson. He should have his tongue cut out. We should do censorship. You shouldn't be able to criticize anybody who's a Jewish politician. Like, you shouldn't be able to criticize anybody who supports Israel in our government. You shouldn't even be able to criticize the government itself because our government is in partnership with the Israeli government, and that is anti-Semitic. That is where this goes. Yeah.
Did you read my ex this morning?
No, I didn't.
Because when you started that, I want to read what you started that segment on. The left is going to be pushed closer to the middle by the talking heads, but the monster they created is going to resist and make excuses to govern me harder, Daddy. Don't believe me? Just read the comments to one of the most grounded things that Zakaria has ever said. And I'm going to play this clip. It's going to be at 1.5 speed because it's kind of long, but it's well worth it. I mean, look, I give credit where credit's due. Most of these people are incessant retards. Every once in a while, a blind squirrel finds an acorn. And he's right on this. This is something that we've talked about on this show for the last several weeks, going back to the Zero Hedge article. Listen to this right here.
But first, here's my take. Zoran Mamdani ran on a promise to make New York affordable.
A mandate for a city we can afford.
Last week, he unveiled a budget that is, in a word, unaffordable. New York has been fiscally profligate for so long that the headline number, $127 billion, produces little shock. But for perspective, these are similar to the annual expenditures of a mid-sized nation with all the expenses a country requires, like Greece or Thailand, devoted to governing one city. New York City's budget has ballooned in recent years. Michael Bloomberg's last budget, adopted for fiscal year 2014, totaled about $70 billion. So in little more than a decade, the budget has nearly doubled, growing faster than inflation and faster than the city's economic growth. And much of it has happened as the city has been losing the one thing that makes big government easier to finance: people. New York City's population fell sharply amid the pandemic, with a 5% decline from April 2020 to July 2022. More recent city reports show a rebound, but the city remained below its 2020 baseline as of 2024. The arithmetic is brutal. A larger bill is divided among fewer payers. Per person, the imbalance is stark. Using the Lincoln Institute's fiscally standardized numbers, New York's general spending in 2023 was more than 30% higher per capita than Los Angeles and more than double Houston. And what do New Yorkers get for this? Look at New York City schools, the largest school district in the country. The city's education budget has climbed while enrollment has shrunk. The DOE budget has risen from roughly $34 billion in 2019 to over $40 billion, while the DOE says per student spending is projected to reach nearly $35,000 in fiscal year 2026, among the highest in the nation. The outputs, graduation numbers, test scores, and reading levels are...
By comparison, my brothers and sisters who are, in their 20s, one of them just turned 20. They went to private school down here, one of the top rated private schools, and paid less than $10,000 a year. Meanwhile, the cost per student in New York is $35,000 for a shitty ass public education with an indoctrination camp.
That's wild.
Yes, that's crazy.
At best middling, often comparable to places that spend a fraction of what New York does. Now come the taxes, because every political argument in New York eventually ends up at the same curbside: who will pay? New York already sits at the extreme end of the American tax spectrum. For high earners, the combined state plus city income tax reaches 14.776%. Add federal taxes and the combined marginal rate can exceed 50%, reaching roughly 55% on certain investment income. New Yorkers pay tax rates comparable to European countries that provide in return universal healthcare, free college education, and amazing infrastructure. New Yorkers get some 300 miles of sidewalk sheds. On business taxation, the city is also off the charts. The Citizens Budget Commission reports that New York City business activity faces the country's highest combined corporate tax rate, 17.44%, once state, city, and regional layers are stacked. Mamdani wants to hike income and corporate rates even further, or else he says he will raise property taxes by almost 10%. Property taxes already made up more than 27% of the cost of home ownership in the city as of 2022, above the national average. New York is really a prime example of a problem Democrats seem unwilling to confront. Blue cities are out of control, promising more, spending more, delivering less, and pushing off the fiscal problems to some future day. Take Los Angeles, another one-party metropolis wrestling with affordability and disorder. The city's homelessness budget for fiscal year 2025-26 totals about $950 million. The LA Homelessness Services Authority reported that in 2023, homelessness was up 9% countywide and 10% in the city. And a 2024 AP account noted that homelessness has surged 70% countywide since 2015 and 80% in the city. All this amid public frustration despite billions spent. An audit reviewed $2.4 billion in city homelessness funding and found that officials could not reliably track where it went or what it achieved. Or take Chicago, with a mayor whose approval rating is deep underwater, where the pension promises are so large that they will surely bankrupt the city at some point. What is the theory of good government here? If the answer is keep adding programs, the city will keep producing unaffordability, because unaffordability is what happens when government becomes a machine that grows faster than the society it governs. Zohran Mamdani's basic instinct is correct. Focus on affordability, especially housing, but not by providing government subsidies. These only seem to have driven up the cost of rent, as subsidies naturally do. The city's rental assistance spending rose from $263 million in fiscal year 2020 to $1.34 billion in the most recently reported fiscal year. That is a 5 times increase in a handful of years, and housing costs only got worse. Matt Iglesias persuasively...
All right, we can pause there or stop that there. You get the point of what he's saying. And I said this last week. We covered this article right here from Zero Hedge. When government subsidies stopped, Doritos got 15% cheaper. And this is talking about SNAP benefits and how when the federal government stops providing people with free services, free money to spend on things, which the corporations then recognize that, hey, the government's giving more money, we can charge more. And then what happens is the SNAP recipients turn around as they're raising prices and they say, hey, government, we can no longer afford Pepsi. We can no longer afford Doritos. You need to increase our SNAP benefits. And the government says, okay, your wish is my command. Here's more money. And what does that do to the people who aren't receiving that, but are the people that have to pay for those increases in the subsidies? The whole fucking system is insane. And that's why, I'm not a fan whatsoever of Fareed Zakaria, but he's absolutely right. That was a brilliant piece by him. Now, granted, it's not anything new. It's not anything novel. It's not new logic. It's just hearing it come from him to his audience, people who may fundamentally believe that, but they've been brainwashed into this idea that, well, it's okay in New York City. We're doing good things for the people. No, you're not. You're not doing good things. Anywhere that the government is giving any type of subsidy, they are destroying everybody that is not on those subsidies. And of course, the rich people aren't going to feel that. It's the middle lower class that's going to feel that. And you start to bridge, to expand that gap between those two entities and push the middle class down to the lower class. So you have an elite ruling oligarchy and a pleb society that has nothing but government handouts. You're muted.
There you go. Yeah, so the strategy to destroy a society is to destroy the middle class. That is everything that this government does, that our government does, is designed to destroy the middle class. Because if you destroy the middle class, that's how you subjugate a people. A strong middle class is an independent country. That is a country that is self-sovereign, you can't control those people. When people are poor and they're dependent and they're uneducated and they're just trying to survive, it's very easy to subjugate and control those people. And then the elite, the people, the haves, the people with money just naturally are going to serve the powered interests. So that, like, creating the middle class, expanding the middle class, building up the middle class, that should be the core mission of MAGA. And that's what Trump has done. Everything he's done has been about building up the middle class and creating expanding it to make it much larger. Everything you said is spot on. And again, I just go back to everyone's obsessed with the Epstein stuff because they want, they want justice, like from a biblical standpoint of like these children being like allegedly being abused. And we all want that, of course. We want that whole system to be exposed to whatever extent it exists. But really, the other really important element as it relates to what I just described, like retaking control of our government, the financial part of it is almost more important, because what is the corruption? What is the purpose of the corruption? What is the purpose of the blackmail? What is the purpose of controlling politicians? It's in order to manipulate the system, right? In order to rob and steal and launder the money out of the system, right? So if you can expose the fact that the government is one giant like laundering machine for stealing our money, which is what all of it is, all this bureaucracy represents that. I think people are going to question, do we need any of this stuff? Like any of it? I'm not sure we need any of it. It's like parse this thing down to bare bones, a military budget and bare bones. Like I'm not sure what bureaucratic element we even need. And that's where the conversation should be. But the gatekeepers on the right are going to keep us talking about the things they want us to talk about, where every other country in the world doesn't even talk about smaller government. The right wing and the other countries are all about how are we going to weaponize our government against our enemies? How are we going to use the powers of government to improve our lives? No. How are we going to limit the powers of government, parse it down so that the private sector can take over?
Yeah. And, case in point to what I was saying, here's some of the response. Nassim Hafar says, that's nice, Fareed, but what concrete ideas do you have? How should Mamdani close the $5 billion budget gap he inherited? Stop giving away free shit.
Yeah.
Stop giving away free shit. That's how you close the gap. And then maybe people will return, and that's revenue. People that return right now under the current, tax structure, that's revenue. Natalie Holm Ellsberg says, tax avoidance by the super wealthy is the fiscal problem. No, it's not. They're fleeing New York. And that's why New York is having the problem that they're having right now, because all the rich people are sick of being taxed to death. And the same people that are saying, tax the rich are the same people that are like, tariffs are bad. Who the fuck do you think is paying those tariffs?
Yeah. The corporations.
The corporations that have been raping us for years by outsourcing.
And then they have to choose when they put their good on the shelf next to my good that I made right here down the street. They have to choose, am I going to take that 15% and am I going to pass it on to the customer? Because if I do, everyone's going to buy the locally made product, because no one's going to pay an extra 15% for my cheap ass stuff that I'm making in China. That's why they're so angry about this, is because the corporatists can't compete with the the middle class family owned business who can make it for much cheaper once all things are even. Like at the very beginning, costs are going to be higher on the front end because you're going to have startup costs and you're going to have to pay wages. But once things balance out and you get real wealth returned to the country, which we do not have right now, it will all balance out. But right now they have to make that choice. And by the way, if every single product on the shelf is going up 15%, that means every single product on the shelf is coming from overseas.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's go ahead and jump into another sponsor. I got one other segment I want to cover real quick before I hand it over to you. Make sure that everything's good, going okay here. We're having issues on the back end. There we go. Okay. Guys, I want to tell you about something that is not very well known, but is incredibly powerful. It's called Ace Manan. It is a compound from aloe vera that massively supports your body's stem cell production and cell health and your immune system function. And it matters because your body replaces about 1% of its cells every single day. As we age or have health issues, we produce cells less efficiently. The thing is, almost no aloe products have Ace Mananin because it breaks down after harvest, and you can't get enough from eating raw aloe because of the aloe's laxative compound. Emerald Med, however, has created a stabilized Ace Manan supplement with the laxative compound removed. It's called Aloe RX. They made it for pharmacies, and now it's available to the public. I want to explain the value of our Aloe RX. Stem cell injections can have amazing results, but can cost around $10,000 to $40,000 per treatment. Aloe RX isn't the same thing as stem cell injections, but it massively supports your body's own stem cell reproduction for less than $100. You could literally give your body this for 16 years for the same price as one stem cell treatment. For people who don't need something extreme like a stem cell injection, but want to help their body significantly, this is arguably the best value on the market. The longer you take it, the more compounding support you have. If you want to support a company that supports our channel with free speech and plus free speech with ads, check out Emerald Med's Aloe RX. Click the link below and learn more and get 30% off of Aloe RX today. And I will be trying that product. I got to order it. I'm going to do it today because I've been debating getting stem cell in my shoulder because it's been getting pretty bad. Yeah, I got to
tell me how that goes. I'll be interested to hear about that.
I've got a couple things I'm going to try, but this is going to be the first one. And then stem cell, I won't be doing it in the US. I'll be going to Mexico because I can get it for like a tenth of the price in Mexico.
Because they don't have all the bureaucratic bullshit that jacks up the prices. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. The treatments, and again, granted, I take, not a big fan, but back in the day, Tim Pool was talking about when he had a skateboarding injury and he went to get the procedure done in Mexico. And he was like, it was a tenth of the prices here in the United States. The facility was right on the water and like had a big window that you just got to watch the ocean while they were treating you. And it was like pristine cleanness and everything. And it was a tenth of the prices here.
Yep.
And ever since then, it's been
many such cases. The whole thing is a scam. All of it
is. It really is. It really is. All right, let's get into one more segment on Gavin Newsom here. We played this on Y-Chromes yesterday. I want to play it again here. Gavin Newsom I've heard arguments that this was not a predominantly black crowd. I've seen video that it was a predominantly black crowd. But either way, this is Gavin Newsom thinking he's either above you or he's just flat out racist.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
Now, he goes on to say that he can't read a speech because of his dyslexia, which, again, maybe this is like Joe Biden's stutter. Remember how his stutter came out of nowhere? And just all of a sudden, Joe Biden had a stutter. Susan Crabtree said they reached out to any information about Gavin Newsom's dyslexia diagnosis. Can the governor provide any paperwork related to his diagnosis at any time in his life? To which they responded, Izzy Garden responded, "Hey, Susan, thanks for reaching out. Respectfully, fuck off." Imagine somebody standing up there and gaslighting, saying, "I can't read speeches because I am dyslexic." And then you're like, hey, this might be something that the potential leader of the free world, we should probably know about this guy. Are you dyslexic? Are you going to be in a heat of the moment situation and completely misinterpret something, misread something, whatever the case might be? That's probably something that we should know about.
Yeah, yeah. And so, the silver lining here, the white pill here is that politicians have always tried to be like relevant. Like they've always tried to be relatable. Like that's why they spend millions of dollars on all these consultants and whatever in these media appearances. So that's not a shocker. It's not a shocker that Gavin Newsom is trying to make himself relatable. It's just he's not good at it. He's not good at being relatable. He does I'll give him. He has charisma. He definitely has charisma. I can give that to him. Yeah, many politicians do have charisma. But he's not relatable because nothing about what he just said was relatable, even if it's true. But this is why it's so important to push our side toward truth. Like, rather than getting bogged down in the shiny objects that they're throwing at us to get us distracted, we should be demanding at all times that every person who's speaking on our behalf is speaking the truth. And I understand kayfabe, and I understand the ops that somebody like at Trump's level would be running because he's surrounded by liars and rats and thieves and traitors. When I say that, I'm talking about DC. But I don't extend that to anybody else. I really don't. I don't extend that courtesy to anybody else. I understand other people could be operating from that capacity, but I don't know. I can't possibly assume that they're doing that because Donald Trump asked them to do that, right? It's like they could be doing that, but maybe they're doing it because somebody who's really bad asked them to do it, right? So we should always just be demanding that they're speaking the truth. And so when somebody says something that is factually, provably false, we should call them out and say, no, you're lying. That's not actually accurate. And the more we do that and the more we train these politicians and these people, just not even politicians, but just public speakers, to stop doing that, the better the net effect will be, the better we will move toward an honorable, restoring the honor and integrity of society at large, which we do not have in the West. We have a value system that is totally predicated on your ability to lie effectively.
Yeah. So Sean Hannity originally posted one of these videos. The one I played was from earlier in the week. But Sean Hannity said Governor Newsom thinks a 960 SAT makes him like Black Americans. Let that sink in. Now, going back to what I said earlier, you had people saying, well, it wasn't a predominantly Black crowd. Okay, then he thinks he's better than just average middle class normal Americans. And he thinks we're stupid because we have.
I'm retarded like all of y'all.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what he said.
This was Newsom's response to Hannity. You didn't give a shit about the president of the United States of America posting an ape video of President Obama or calling African nations shitholes, but you're going to call me racist for talking about my lifelong struggle with dyslexia? Spare me your fake fucking outrage, Sean. Again, there's a big difference between a meme video and he doesn't deny that it was a predominantly Black crowd. He doesn't deny that he was speaking to a predominantly Black crowd, a Black host that was on stage with him and saying, I'm like you, I can't read my speeches, and I have a 960 SAT score, which is...
Yeah. The thing is that I actually agree with Gavin Newsom right there. And that's what Gavin Newsom, I think, has been, if he's been effective at all, he's been effective in moments like that where he does make analysis like that. That is it's him telling the truth. He's like, hey, you didn't call out Obama when Obama said this stuff, Sean Hannity, because you probably were afraid or whatever, you were controlled. This is the white pill, though. This is a silver lining. As these people vie for relevance, to maintain their relevance, because that's what their whole program and identity is predicated on, they're going to eat each other. They're going to have to call out one another for being liars so that they can validate their own credibility. And they can say, see, I'm trustworthy because I'm calling out these people who are lying to you. Because Sean Hannity is a liar. He's a career liar. That's been his whole job. His job is to get up on television every night and lie to you. And we should have extreme contempt for him for doing that. But we don't, because we have a inherent tolerance for it that is, in my opinion, totally unacceptable.
So just two things real quick before I hand it over to you on this, and then we'll get out of here. We'll give it over to you, not get out of here. This Michelle on X posted this repost of Gavin Newsom back in 2022, reading some banned books to figure out what these states are so afraid of. That's referring to the banned book thing. And of course, Newsom said he doesn't read. And then Laura Powell put this out.
You've written a hell of a book, and I don't say that lightly. I went through it in a quick hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And trust me, I don't read very fast, but it reads at an unbelievable pace.
So you read a 300-page book in about an hour and a half or 2 hours, or you're just lying to those people because, you want to whatever. We don't deserve the internet. This was pretty epic.
That would be like 3 or 4 pages a minute, right? I'm just doing the math in my head. Yeah. It's like you're reading 3 or 4 pages a minute. Like, that is incredible.
Yeah, 120 minutes. Yeah. AI is awesome. And the only reason I'm playing this is because Gavin Newsom was like the guy that came out crying about AI, right? Remember when he came out, like, they're using fake AI videos to whatever. Anyways.
I'm trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy, I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. I'm trying.
Oh, man.
It does beg the question, if he's really as stupid as he claims to be, and I don't deny that or doubt it, how did he achieve the levels of success that he did? It's not that you can't be like relatively unintelligent or have like learning disabilities or dyslexia and be successful. It's the fact that this guy became like the leader of California and is like this huge political figure and is going to run for president. But he's out there telling you I'm retarded. You're never going to hear Donald Trump describe himself as retarded,
So I'm glad you brought that up. How did Gavin Newsom with such my SAT score? I had a 1420 on my SAT scores. I had really good scores. Average scores, I think, are probably around what Newsom's saying. I don't know. Gavin Newsom went to Santa Clara University. It's a private Jesuit school out in California. Their average SAT score, now this is current, but granted, I don't think it's changed too much. I mean, Gavin Newsom's probably a little bit older than me, and I can remember my 1420 did not get me into the schools that I wanted to go to, by the way. But Santa Clara, 1420 is their average score. Now, probably was the same, back then, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. How does a guy with a 960 SAT score get into a school that is taking the top 5% of SAT scores in the country? His 960 is closer to the math average of 720 for their current admissions than it is to the 1420 by a lot. What is that called?
It's called nepotism. It's called nepotism.
What's it called when a white dude who has a
white privilege?
Father, a judge father and a wealthy lawyer father gets into a school with lackluster credentials and everything else. What do we call that again?
Well, the left calls it white privilege, but really it's just elitism and nepotism. That's really all it is, because there's plenty of white people who don't have those opportunities afforded to them. So, but that's the game of identity politics.
Yeah. Our Hody. I got a 99 on my ASVAB too. 142 overall on the technical, but 99 in the percentile. Yeah, I'm actually pretty smart. I get bored with school, man. I was so bored in school. It was just
it's because it's the way the material's taught.
Yeah,
it's not taught to make you think. It's taught in a way that's just made you to memorize. Yeah, exactly. Memorize and regurgitate, which is a terrible, inhumane way to teach children knowledge.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. I do. If you could just be, I'm just going to give you the rest of the time. I'll talk about the other stories tomorrow because I went way over. So floor is yours, Gordon. Oh, wait. Real quick. I'm sorry. I do have to talk about our final sponsor of the program. Before and I apologize. Let me try that again.
All good.
Bad put up a picture of Gavin Newsom in blackface. AI Gavin Newsom in blackface. We got to talk about our next sponsor, though. Everybody is talking about weight loss injections because the results are so dramatic. They work by lowering the blood sugar and reducing appetite. So what if you're looking to lose weight but not interested in the painful weekly injections, especially when you hear about some of those intense side effects? That is why doctors created a weight loss supplement called Lean, and the results are remarkable. The studied ingredients in Lean have been shown to lower your blood sugar, burn fat by converting it into energy, and curb your appetite and cravings so you're not as hungry. But listen, Lean is not for the casual dieter with only a few pounds to lose. The doctors at Brickhouse Nutrition created Lean for frustrated dieters with 10 or more pounds to lose. Let's get you started with 20% off and free rush shipping so you can add Lean to your healthy diet and exercise plan. Visit takelean.com and enter promo code Badlands for your discount. Again, that's promo code Badlands at takelean.com. All right. And on that note, Gordon, the floor is yours.
All right. So I see people in the chat clamoring for the Mexico discussion. We will get to Mexico, but I want to start with something that's more relevant to what we were just talking about, which is just liars, right? I think, and especially calling out liars on our side. So I don't know if y'all talked about the Huckabee thing yesterday. I'm going to go into more detail on this on my show this afternoon, as well as talking about geopolitics and the State of the Union tonight. And then Ash and I are actually going to do a show tomorrow afternoon, a special on the theological stuff, because I'm going to cover probably the geopolitical comments that Mike Huckabee made during this interview with Tucker. This was a big milestone, I think. It's important to point out, CannCon, Mike Huckabee, as he explained to Tucker in the interview, I don't know if you caught it, he's the first Gentile ever appointed to be the ambassador to Israel. And I went back and checked, and he's right. Every ambassador that's ever been appointed to Israel has been Jewish. And while that might seem like, okay, like what's the big deal? Well, do we appoint Muslims to be the ambassador to Saudi Arabia? Do we appoint Chinese to be the ambassador to China? Like, if that were a habit, if we did that every single time, wouldn't that be strange? Like, that would be kind of weird, right? Like, you're only going to appoint somebody from an identity group to serve in this capacity. And that is why when this happened, when I didn't realize at the time that Mike Huckabee was the first Gentile, but I just knew his policy positions, I knew it was an op. I was like, Trump is setting up Huckabee to basically be exposed. And this is where the exposure happened. So let's watch this 2-minute clip and then we'll discuss.
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant. So that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean,
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis. Yeah. You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Yeah. And so he obviously had to backtrack and do some serious damage control after saying that. But just to be clear, these are the boundaries that Tucker specified. And he said, yes, those are the boundaries, because this is the Nile on the left. This is the Euphrates on the right. So these are the boundaries. This is called Greater Israel. It's actually, if you go look up the Neo-Babylonian Empire from the 5th century or 6th century BC. That's what this is. It's the Neo-Babylonian Empire is what they're talking about establishing. And obviously this caused a firestorm across the Middle East of like every government, which are all of our partners, by the way, Saudi Arabia being the most important one, up in arms about this statement from the ambassador to Israel from the United States. Very angry, and rightfully so. But I want to, and so Mike Huckabee comes off as a very nice person. Like, he seems like a genteel, like gentleman, like a nice guy, right? That interview was, wow. Like, I can't believe he defended pedophile, like that pedophile guy who was charged and then fled to Israel. He said, innocent until proven guilty. He was arrested in Las Vegas for trying to have sex with a 15-year-old. This is a top official in Netanyahu's government who fled to Israel and did not come back for his trial. He made excuses for why pedophiles are shielded in Israel who are accused in their home country. He justified the killing of children, like 14-year-olds who are indoctrinated and forced to fight as like child soldiers, which nobody was making those justifications in Africa when we were talking about child soldiers in Africa 30 years ago. But now apparently we are justifying and saying, yeah, that 14-year-old does deserve to die. So again, contradicts like all the things that you would expect a Christian pastor to say. And again, these are the hypocrisies that we have to highlight. And I want to play one other short clip from that, and then we'll be done with it. This is
one thing at the end.
Oh yeah, sure. This is, nobody has clipped this. Nobody is talking about this. This is what I think October 7th was actually about.
Simply saying that the people who live in Israel, I think, have a right to have security, have safety. They have a right to be able to live in this land that they have a connection to for 30.
I told myself when I said a prayer that I would not get annoyed, but as someone who is, the father of daughters, when I see child molesters hiding in Israel and escaping American justice, I think I have a right to safety in my country too. So you can understand that I think most people feel they have a right to safety. I do think Israel has a right to safety, and I hope that for them. And I'm sincere, but I'm an American and I have a right to safety in my country too.
Of course you do.
Agree? And I think so, but I just want to get to this point. If Israel were to say, God gave us in Genesis 15, all of Lebanon, all of Syria, all the way up to Iraq, would that be legitimate in your view?
I don't think in this particular day and time they're asking for it.
Would it be legitimate?
I'm not sure that it would be.
Why? Because you just said that God gave it to them.
Because I think that there is an understanding that the people of Israel today, now, if they end up getting attacked by all these places and they win that war and they take that land, then okay, that's a whole nother discussion. But you and I,
boom. That's a whole nother discussion. If they get attacked by these places and then respond to that attack and then go to war with those places, win that war, now do you understand why October 7th was allowed to happen? Now do you understand why the social media environment was flooded with videos up? I talked with Alpha about this on his show on Sunday. When you went on patrol in Afghanistan, did you like take pictures and film yourself with your buddies, like playing with, like going through houses of people who've been killed and like picking up their stuff and playing with it, going into schoolhouses, writing like obscene messages on the chalkboard, taking pictures of it, like posing with dead bodies? Like, did you do that kind of stuff?
The latter may or may not have happened, but it will never be public if it did happen.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, make those kind of things and then publish it on the internet for the whole world to see.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you probably would get in trouble with the military, I think, if you did that, right? I mean, that would be my expectation. Yeah. Now, we can argue whether that stuff was AI generated or whether it was real. Like, okay. But the point is that it was definitely pushed out by the algorithm. And my theory for a long time has been it was pushed out by the algorithm in order to generate the hatred and the contempt to provoke exactly what Mike Huckabee just said right there, to provoke these countries into picking up arms and attacking Israel out of a sense of like righteous justice. And then that would result in what Mike Huckabee just said. Then Israel is entitled to their land if they are attacked first. So that's what I think this is all about. That's what I think this whole situation has been about. Mike Huckabee just kept getting caught in these little logic traps that he couldn't quite get his way out of because he wasn't applying first principles. He wasn't applying the teachings of Christ. He was abandoning all that for political preference. And that's the evil that I think we are looking at right here. We are talking about everything that they accuse Iran of being, which is extreme, radicalized religious extremists. That's actually what they are. And because Mike Huckabee is a Christian, Tucker was able to trap him and say, well, wait a minute, Christian teachings, like this kind of defies what that is. And Mike Huckabee's like, yeah, well, you know, it is what it is. Like they have a right to it and they should be able to take it. So we will go into this further and talk about the geopolitical stuff this afternoon. And then tomorrow, Ash and I will talk about the theological stuff that, you know, the scripture that was cited. But let's go to Mexico because we only have a few minutes left. I guess I'll also just point out, if you want to go look at the news brief from today, I went and documented all the different instances. So here's like all of the entire Middle East basically up in arms about what Huckabee said. They're all very angry about that, and rightfully so. Here is Bezalel Smotrich yesterday saying, in the end, Israel will occupy and establish settlements in Gaza. Doesn't matter what Trump says or Trump does. Like, you know, it's not up to Trump. Like, we're going to go back to this war as soon as we can. Here is a month ago, all of the cabinet ministers in the security cabinet, the most powerful men in Israel, including Smotrich, saying that they reject the peace board. They reject the board of peace. This is from January 18th. Here is an article from this past weekend of Zayev Elkin, who is from the finance ministry. He works for Bezalel Smotrich. He says Israel is not going to contribute a dime to the board of peace. It's not going to contribute a dime to Gaza reconstruction. Here is President Trump at the board of peace meeting last Thursday.
His Excellency Prime Minister Al Thani of Qatar, just a great man, a great man and highly respected. And he's working with a man who is amazing. I always say he needs a public relations agency because you do so much good and they have you down as evil. And you're not evil. You help us so much and you're such a good ally. And I just want people to know that. And the emir is incredible.
So that he's talking about Tamim, the emir from Qatar. Remember, Trump refueled at Qatar months ago, and like Tamim came and got on the plane, and they were holding hands, and Trump was just like, "I love this guy. Like, this guy's one of my great friends. I wish everybody would give him a chance. I don't understand why there's all this hate." And he's calling out right there in that moment. He's calling out Laura Loomer and Mark Levin, who have been, you know, Tucker Carlson and Qatar. Laura Loomer actually posted that video. I pulled that video from her post, and I'm not going to read her whole post because it's too long, but she goes on to basically flippantly defy Trump and say, I hate Qatar and that's not going to change. And basically tells Trump to stick it, and that she's not going to listen to Trump when Trump tells all of them to chill out and to bring the rhetoric down. She's very subversive. Everything Trump does, she subverts. So does Levin. So does Lindsey Graham. So do all these people who are pushing us into war at all times. And then finally, we had this guy, Yair Lapid. This is the opposition leader to Netanyahu. This is the guy who is the favorite to win the election in October and become the prime minister of Israel. He was the prime minister of Israel in 2021 for 12 months. Listen to him.
I want to use this opportunity to send a clear message to our enemies. No matter who is in government in Israel, we will always know how to defend ourselves. We will always strike at those who seek to harm us. I say especially to the Iranian regime, we will never allow you to build up a missile threat against our people again. Your terror proxies will never be given a moment's peace, and you will never be allowed nuclear weapons. My position is clear. It is time to strike at the foundations of the regime. The people of Israel deserve to live in safety. The people of Iran deserve freedom and a better life. The Middle East deserves a future of peace and prosperity. Israel will stand united. There will be no opposition coalition during war with Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu and I will put aside our differences for the defense of our country, for the defense of our people. All of Israel will unite behind our soldiers and pilots.
You hear that?
Is that Jewish Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, right. I know. Well, I mean, he is Eastern European, so as many such cases. Yeah, so this guy is a centrist. He's actually center left. That's his political posture. He's a leftist. I mean, he's on the left. He's technically a centrist, but you know, he skews more to the left. He's a former news anchor, right, turned politician. And this is what I've been saying, CannCon. there are people in Israel who oppose war and oppose Zionism and oppose like the Greater Israel Project, but those people have no political power. All the political factions in the Knesset, including the opposition leader to Netanyahu, just said, if you start a war with Iran, Bibi, I will put aside all of our differences and we will unite behind you. Do you think that Bibi has an incentive to make sure that happens now? That all of the problems that he's dealing with domestically on the home front, they're going to stop criticizing him. They're going to stop scrutinizing him. They're going to stop calling for his prosecution because of those charges he's been facing, and they're going to unite behind him. Do you think he has an incentive to move forward and to basically move heaven and earth to start a war with Iran that, by the way, our kids are going to fight, not them, but our kids? Yeah. So is there an actual earnest peace-seeking political faction in Israel? I haven't seen it. Not one that actually has real clout or real power, and that's the problem. That's the problem that we're up against when you hear what Mike Huckabee says about Greater Israel. If they all want war with these neighboring countries, then how can we have an earnest like peace-seeking partnership with them, right? So I don't know how we deal with this problem. I don't know how this all gets resolved, but exposing it so that people stop lying about it and stop misrepresenting the truth, that's the only way we get to the bottom of it. And calling it out, that's where we start. So I think we're kind of out of time here, but for everyone who is interested in the cartel of Mexico stuff, tune into my show this afternoon. We'll definitely talk about that. And I'll just say that Trump going after these people in Mexico, I don't know if you saw this, but he said right here that, so this is the video from like last month where he said that the cartels run Mexico. This is a video from, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where he said he offered the special forces to Sheinbaum, the Mexican president. She turned him down. However, she did accept, the Mexican Senate did approve the SEAL Team 2 coming in there and training the Mexican military to fight the cartels. And then we get this story
that never means training, by the way. Whenever you see our special forces going over to train them, no, they're not training them.
That's kind of what
they're operating. Yeah, they're operating.
Curious, but it says from New York Post, and I don't know if this is true or not, but Trump quietly got Mexico to hand over 100 cartel leaders, including El Mencho's brother, before Jalisco raid. And so El Mencho is, of course, the guy that they killed that started all this violence. Look, I've been saying for months now that Petro is a good guy, that the Colombian president's a good guy, that Venezuelan president Maduro is a good guy. Petro has been saying this since September. He's been saying it for years, but I've been paying attention since September that we got to go after the cartels, President Trump. We got to go after the cartels, not just the guys in fatigues with rifles in the jungle, but we got to go after their bankers that are in Europe, in the Middle East, and in New York, in Miami. So that's what this represents. They are going after the cartels. At the same time, there's a lot of evidence. I told you about the guy who's doing the investigation against Credit Suisse, and that report's going to come out publicly to the Senate any day now, sometime this year. I think I'm seeing all these different tracks, like these lines that are in the water. One of them is going after the thugs that are like the actual cartel, and then the other going after the corporate partners who are the bankers and the money launderers. Very encouraging, very, very encouraging. So we'll go deeper into that on my show this afternoon.
All right. And before we get out of here, we'll get into Rumble Rants in just a second, but I do want to talk about our final sponsor of the program. I apologize. We had one more come up, guys. I recently made the switch to the proper toothbrush, and it is one of those things that just makes so much sense once you actually hear about it. I want you to picture something for a second. Think about the brush that you're using right now. It's likely packed with abrasive nylon bristles. Now ask yourself, why would you ever wash your car with a nylon bristle brush? Of course not. You destroy the paint. So why on earth are you doing that to your teeth and gums twice a day, where essentially you're grinding down your enamel and wrecking your gums with outdated technology? Proper did away with the sandpaper approach. Instead of nylon, they use these engineered TPE scrubbers. They actually flex and give under pressure. They don't just poke at the plaque. They scrub it away with a smooth, controlled motion that's actually gentle on your mouth. It's about working smarter, not harder. On top of the tech, there's the principle. Proper is made right here in the USA. No cheap overseas imports, no giant faceless corporations cutting corners to save a nickel. It's a solid build for people who actually value quality and value American manufacturing. If you're tired of the big corporate way of doing things and want a brush that actually protects your health, hit the link below and check out Proper Dental. Use the code RUMBLE15 at checkout and save 15% off your first order with Proper Dental. And so there it is, another American-made company with a new take on technology. Fantastic toothbrush. Highly, highly recommend. And yeah, let's just real quick, guys. GART 11 coming up. Nashville will be out there in April 9th through the 12th. You guys can get your online virtual tickets right now at a special price. I think I don't have it pulled up right now, but I think they go back to the normal price. What is it, March 15th? I think. Sorry, I don't have it pulled up right now, but check it out. Badlands.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the hike happens.
Yeah, check it out. Badlandsmedia.tv/events. And then we have just a couple Rumble rants. We already got into the one from Bobo Afu about the bill. And then Isle of Wight GHT privilege. Northern Nevada is like a different world than Vegas on a few levels. We've transitioned to a tech industrial centric Tesla Google switch area. Business tax friendly, been booming for years. Heck yeah. Well, I mean, Vegas never recovered or has not yet recovered from the COVID lockdowns. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I love Las Vegas, and not because of all the craziness. Just I don't know what it is about this.
I feel like a lot of places are like that. I mean, the neighborhood that my old office used to be in was like booming with restaurants and stuff, and then they all closed down and none of them came back. And it was just like a boarded up like ghetto basically. It was a really like great place to work because you could bring clients in and walk somewhere to go get lunch, and it was a great place to walk around. And then it was just completely covered in feces and boarded up like a ghetto when we left, when we finally moved out of there. Really sad.
Yeah, Vegas never recovered. And now they're pushing it down on people. It's gotten so damn expensive out there. You go to dinner and a show, and you're looking at $400 or $500 for a good show and a decent dinner, and it's ridiculous, and it sucks because I love that place so much. But all right, guys, thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Smash that thumbs up on your way out. Gordon, what time's your show today? 2
o'clock Eastern. Yep. And then State of the Union tonight. Hockey team's going to be there. Man, that I'm excited to see what Trump says. I don't think it's going to be a boilerplate speech. I could be wrong, but this would be the moment. Dude, the State of the Union of 2018, which I'm going to do on the Book of Trump, was one of the craziest like chapters of Trump's first term. I don't know if you remember what happened like after, but like, do you remember like the Republicans getting on the train and going to the Greenbrier, to, like the continuity of government facility with all their families, and then the dump truck attacked the train flipped over, and there were the stories about like all these injured people and people getting like medical treatment. And I mean, that's a wild story that nobody talks about. And then the missile allegedly flew up and almost took out Air Force One on its way to Singapore. I mean, 2018 was wild.
Was that the guy that stole the plane and went crazy?
No. That was
Josh Reed talked about this. The guy stole the Alaska Airlines, and it ended up getting shot down by the F-15. But they alleged that the F-15 was actually tasked to intercept Air Force One. Is that not 2018?
I don't know if that was 2018. I know what incident you're talking about, but this was when Trump. There's a picture of like, it clearly looks like a missile, like the stream of a missile, like coming out of like some inlet, like up in Washington. And the allegation is
Washington State, right?
Yeah, like Q and all them.
That's the same thing.
It could be. I don't know. I don't know. But
you need to go watch Josh Reed's take on that. He did it on DEFCON 0 with Alpha. Probably like it was when I was in Utah, so back in August. It was. Okay. I listened to it when I was in then.
Sky King was that guy, I believe, right?
Sky King. He did the donut with like a DC-9 or something.
No, he did a loop-de-loop, whatever it was, a DC-9, and the guys watching him were like, holy crap, I can't believe he just did that.
I know. All right, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, stay tuned tonight, Badlands Book Club at 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by Brad and Abby live. If they do it, I don't know, check with Abby's health. I know she was feeling down yesterday. Gordon will be on at 2 p.m. And then, of course, the State of the Union tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on Badlands Media. We'll see you guys later.